How's it going, folks? Riffin with Jeza. Episode... I don't know what episode this is. Could be 6 or 7. It's been a couple of weeks since I've done an episode. At this point, I haven't released the episodes. So if this ever becomes popular, people will be amazed at that. Wow, he almost didn't release it. So there's hesitation for me to release it just because, I'm talking fairly personal stuff. And another thing is that I might release it and just there's absolutely no interest. And that's depressing. But in the end, I probably will. Almost definitely will. So the thing is that, providing these recordings work, which I'm pretty sure they'll be good enough, even though it's just on the phone. But anyway, a couple of insights came through this morning, so I just wanted to share them. So what I find is that when I go on these walks, I get little insights that come to me. It's quite interesting. And, over time, if I keep going with this podcast, I'll try to have might get a proper microphone and, make it sound a bit better. I've got no idea. This may not sound any good, but we'll see. Anyhow, so my insights are as follows. So one thing I've noticed is I'm in Costa Rica at the moment. I'm fairly sure I'm going to leave. And I think I'm going to go spend some time in Nashville. Nashville is a place that I had down on my list. But yeah, there's a little bit of weather shenanigans happening in Tennessee and America in general. So it's not without some risk, but, stagnation I sort of see as a bigger risk. So I'm going to go do that soon. And so it's interesting, I'm in Costa Rica. And at the moment I'm walking with a stick. The reason is because here, in this particular town, people don't keep their dogs locked up. And so I've realised that, as annoying as it is, I have to have a stick to fend off some stupid, ill-contrained dog. But it's interesting because I'm sort of starting to think that nothing is without sort of, stuff has relevance, like everything is interconnected. And even the small irritation of being harassed by dogs, I'm starting to see as not irrelevant. Because for me, walking, it's more than just exercise, it's a spiritual thing. It's how I connect, it's kind of how I process feelings. Part of the reason I started doing this supposed podcast is because basically there's two friends that I send big messages to. And most people, by the way, don't want to even listen. Fucking selfish pricks. But anyway, it is what it is. But if you get a couple people that are interested, then it's kind of really nice. But what's interesting, what I would find with these messages is that I'd be walking along and I'd be saying stuff and I would start to what I perceive as channel, which means content would come through that was showing me things beyond my mind. Like it wasn't me doing it. And so there was something about me communicating to someone that facilitated the process. So basically, I think I've said it before, but in the end, if I get a handful of people that actually listen to this, and I'm channeling, like where stuff is coming through me, I think I'm going to be happy. Because I don't even give a fuck about monetizing this. I mean, I've had so many things not work financially online. I may as well just do something that I enjoy. But more than that, it's almost like when I start speaking, if there's somebody on the other end, I start learning things as well. But for whatever reason, it needs a receptor. Like someone else has to be receiving it. Because I wouldn't get this on my own. So this is one of these pivotal things that is the reason I started this podcast, albeit at this point hasn't actually been released, but this could be the week. This could be the week. Oh yeah. But anyway, so that's really interesting. But to get back to the dog story, one of the things I've sort of realised is the universe is either communicating. Now you can call it the universe, God, whatever the fuck you want. Like it's just people are so hung up on their view of reality, but on their actual semantics, on their lens. But I really don't think it makes any difference on the names. I do believe there's something happening. That's my experience. I mean, I would almost call that a knowing. It's so obvious. I don't like to call anything a knowing absolutely, but for me, there's a definite communication that happens with the universe. And the funny thing is, it can happen, through stuff that you think is just so irrelevant. Like, it's quite interesting. So getting back to the dog thing, my hypothesis at this point is the dog thing, as trivial as it is just yet another thing that's kind of not quite working. It's a bit of an irritant. And it's really saying to me, this is a beautiful place. This is a cool place to visit. But this ain't for you, buddy. This ain't your path. Or at least not now. That's how I'm perceiving it. And the dog thing, so people would dismiss it. Why? Because they can't prove it through their own lens. They don't know what they don't know, but their arrogance says that I do know what I don't know. I don't understand it, therefore it doesn't exist. Which kind of annoys me, but that's how it is. So as I say, I know that some people would dismiss it, but I 100% think. Now look, I don't know if this is the ultimate message. I can't prove that. But I do feel like the universe communicates. And at this point, this dog thing is another one of these weird serendipities. It's just like it's an irritant. But as I said, like walking is a meditation for me. And it's like, being able to do this in peace, like, is important to me. And so I'm seeing this as another signal that it's time to go. Now look, I don't know if I'm going to end up in Nashville or not. I'm certainly going to go for a holiday. But, I was in Canada, I might end up back in Canada, I'm not sure. But either way, I'm getting this, I feel I'm getting this nudge to leave. Certainly to not spend the duration of my life here. And it's an interesting thing. I mean, when I came here, I thought that that's what life was wanting. But sometimes you've got to move out of somewhere to get to the next step. You can only go from what the step you're on. If you need to go to step C, sometimes you have to go by step B. And you can't see step C until you're on step B. But it's quite interesting. Something as well, oh yeah, and another thing is that I haven't really had relationships that have worked out here so far. I'm very isolated. When I say relationships, I mean kind of all relationships. Nothing's really worked out. And as I said, I'm not really saying this to bitch, I'm just saying it's just an interesting observation. That it's like there's a lack of flow or something. Something else I've been thinking as well. In Australia, Australians are very conditioned around alcohol. And boy, in the last 10 years I've had a lot, I have to say. I don't say that with a lot of pride, but it is what it is. So, but it's just interesting because more and more, like I see that this is, this is one of the ways that people get sucked into the matrix. So not being part of the matrix is pretty important to me, like not being part of the hypnosis or the mind control. What it is, not being part of the mind control. But it's interesting because I think that, I've been thinking this for a while, but I've been thinking that alcohol is part of that trap. I'm not saying I'm never going to have it. That would be a big drop. But I'm partly not saying I'm never going to have it just because if I say something like that, my mind will get into a battle. It'll sort of, like, my mind doesn't like to be told what to do. So I kind of know how it works. So I'm best off withdrawing from stuff rather than saying no to stuff. Mostly. It's a tricky edge. You have to do it with discipline because if you're still dabbling on something, you can keep an addiction going. But anyway, the alcohol thing is just another interesting thing as well that I would notice, because I think I basically come to believe it affects your vibration and it affects the things you draw into your life. Like when I had a fair bit of alcohol over COVID, and I noticed that I think it actually drew in a lot of negativity, a lot of problems. And don't get me wrong, there was a lot of issues happening with COVID as well, a lot of darkness swirling about anyway. And so focusing on that stuff, was part of it. But the alcohol had a magnetizing force in itself. It's just one of these interesting things because I think that we're being conditioned to associate it with celebrating and fun and good times and having a break and success and enjoying life. And don't get me wrong, look, I'm not a believer in, I've had periods in my life where I have eaten super, super clean. And that wasn't really it either. For me anyway, that didn't work. And I didn't enjoy it. Like being too strict. And there's people out there who are very almost religious about what they eat. And I don't see them as very connected. I sort of see it as to come from. It's like if you're doing it with any sort of superiority, self-righteousness, anger, or whatever, like if you're doing it from love, and you really love and enjoy it, and it's not a social identity, then I see that as a positive thing. But if there's any sort of superiority around it, or sort of punishment around it, or like holier than thou, or whatever, I see it as problematic. There's a bit of that holier that, so obviously I don't want to sort of get too polarizing here, but if I have a friend and they're vegan, I have zero problem with that. And I'm not myself, but I have dabbled in that world. I've tried it. I found for me I needed meat. But basically, I totally respect anyone who's in that world, like if that's what they want to do. But yeah, when there's a fundamentalism or superiority around it, or I have the truth, you don't. I see that with God as well and religious stuff, just belief systems, it's just anything that's fundamentalist, where someone believes they have the truth, just makes me want to run a mile. Because at any one moment we don't know what we don't know. And so you believing that your belief system is the correct one, I just see that as a fool's errand. And it's quite interesting because when COVID came through, it really showed me that the world is different to what we think. For me anyway, like a lot of stuff was revealed that I was like, wow, that's incredible. I didn't realise everything was so controlled at such a big scale. And so it really, but not everybody was on that plane. And I mean, that's cool because there's could be things about this, I'm sure there's going to be things about that I'm yet to see. And my perspective on it is probably going to change. I mean, one of the things I realised that over time was that focusing on that, the darker outcomes, is problematic. So, for me, it's also problematic just to ignore reality. You know, like just to put a band-aid over the fuel gauge and just say, well, I'm just keeping my vibe high, which is not really, because underneath your nervous system knows the truth. But nonetheless, I have a different perspective on that stuff now and how I manage it into my life. So, being aware of something but not giving it too much emotional charge, because giving it too much emotional focus and charge is the thing that will make it potent one way or the other. So if it's a good thing, then doing that is great because it'll bring it into your life. If it's a bad thing, it's not good. And the fact that it's true doesn't matter. The biggest thing is, I think, you don't have to deny it, because denying gives us a certain charge anyway. But you have to be aware of it. Like, you sort of have to give it, okay, this is what's happening. Now, what can I do about it? And how can I just enjoy my life anyway? And not have puppet masters control how I feel. You know? I was chatting with someone yesterday and they're talking about how they feel about Trump and Elon Musk and all these people. And I just kind of think, how relevant is this? Like, don't get me wrong, like, it's interesting. But I mean, how relevant is this to your life? And too many people, like, you know, have this, are relying on a saviour. Like, as they see as a saviour, which I just think, I mean, apart from the circumstance, which is questionable, it's like, you're the saviour. You don't know these people, so you be the saviour. And so, similarly, on politics in a lot of these areas, again, I sway away from any sort of fundamentalism. If anyone's really anti-someone, then to me it's time to take a step back. Because that emotion is controlling you. And if they're really for someone in a strong way, maybe you're giving up your own power. So, but anyway, it's interesting. Anyway, that's, I think that's all I needed to say today. So let's see, where do we start? So there's that thing about little circumstances in life can show you your direction. It can come through seemingly, doesn't mean you have to believe that, okay, this is the truth, but is this little circumstance showing you stuff? Quite interesting. Yeah. And then, then I gave my little awarenesses over alcohol, about how that can take people into the matrix. And then there's my little awarenesses on fundamentalism and tribalism. And, being too emotionally tied or vested into a situation. But anyway.
Riffin with Jeza.